Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT. And we are back with another thread. Today we're talking about the inevitability of annihilation. The formats to come that will frustrate us to no end. The completely avoidable, and therefore completely unavoidable, design mistakes that Konami refuses to rectify in advance. Today I'm here to do Konami's job for them. Someday in the far-flung future, the cards we speak about today will ruin Yu-Gi-Oh! We've seen this happen time and time again. The barrier statues weren't a problem until they were. Rivalry and Gozen weren't too big of a deal until they became one. And as we've learned recently, while Spell Canceller's never been fair, it's never been as popular as it is in this moment. So today we'll box out the floodgates of the future. What cards are just one enabler away from being a real problem? And I'm cheating a little bit by starting with one that's already an issue. Pharaonic Advent has crept into a number of lists. That's because it can be sent off of Magician's Souls and then added back via Firewall Dragon, who is everywhere thanks to Protect Code Talker, then can summon itself to your side of the field and search any continuous trap in the game, be it Anti-Spell, Gozen Match, Rivalry, Teak-Boo. People are already playing this card, but I think it's a perfect example of something that seems innocuous until it isn't. So what future fiends did you all come up with? Let's see. GCD's got a great one, and one that's echoed throughout this thread. These two flip monsters, Whirlwind Weasel and Guard Dog. At present, there just isn't a flip deck really capable of using these, but someday there will be. And when this card is flipped, your opponent can't special summon for the rest of the turn, or activate spell or trap cards if you use Whirlwind Weasel. Now, this has been tinkered with a couple of times in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Historically, Guard Dog was present in Prediction Princess decks when those cards were first released. The deck was never competitive, but it was doing this. The one place these cards have been really frustrating is in Duel Links, where, of all things, a Tindangle skill enabled you to set flip monsters with pretty consistent regularity. Guard Dog and Whirlwind Weasel were pretty quickly sniffed out, which made everyone switch to Sonic Jammer, a card that still resides on the limited list in that game. These are ones to look out for sure. Dyer's got a great one, and I will be honest, I'm putting this in here because she's editing the video. But the Wicked Avatar is a card that has been tried to have been broken pretty much every year since it was first introduced. Jerome said as much in one of the Genesis Points updates. At present, the best place to slot this card is in Clown Crew, which has the ability to summon it on the opponent's turn using the effect of Bianca Viso. Now, the downside is you do still have to draw it. One day it will become searchable and then a huge, unbelievable problem, but the payoff is already strong. No spell traps for like 2 turns? Like, that's unbelievable. The game is over. And as someone who played a lot of Clown Crew in Genesis, this is one of the most frustrating cards in the deck. Also at 0 points. Thanks. White Howling is a weird one. This card has seen on and off sideboard play in formats where a deck that can pay its cost is metagame relevant. If you control a water monster, target a spell in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and for the rest of the turn negate all spell effects on your opponent's field. Now this is a little different than other floodgates for a very specific reason, which is there already has to be a spell in your opponent's graveyard. So they've resolved something, meaning this will like trade for maybe 2 spell activations at most. Still really strong. Snazzy, I think, has the right idea, which is the reason this would be frustrating is the name, White Howling. That might as well be the subtitle of this video. Molten Gates has a great one. When the inevitable Slifer support comes out with the stipulation your opponent cannot summon monsters except in face-up attack position or decrease the attack of any opposing monster by 1,000 for each card in your hand, I'm sure that's going to be cool and fun. So one thing you may not know about Slifer is that it is a floodgate, and it probably can't ever be banned because it's Slifer the Sky Dragon. If a monster is normally special summoned to your opponent's field in face-up attack position, that monster loses 2,000 attack. Then if its attack has been reduced to 0 as a result, destroy it. That's a really frustrating floodgate effect, especially in a world where Link monsters compose a majority of combos. Hilariously, this did see a small stint of playability in online Tearlament formats where you could use the revived Sky God to bring this back and fill your hand with Havnesses while also just sort of incidentally floodgating your opponent a little bit. You can just summon stuff in defense to get around this, a la the Fluon monsters, but extra support that pushes this to playability would be a pretty big problem for that reason. Sons of Libertim has actually a really good one. At some point, the move to turn 0 gameplay is going to make gigantic sprites inexplicably 2-sided lock a problem. This is absolutely true. It sounds weird to say now, but I think there will be or may be a future in which this card is used as a fucked up Called by the Grave. At present, it kind of boxes out Harmonia. It obviously boxes out Nibiru. How many formats have we seen where a card that boxes out some but not all hand traps is still good enough to integrate into a combo combo string. And not to mention, of course, the fact that it does box out the turn 0 plays. You can't go for Izuna after they've resolved this effect. People recall Gigantic Spright as an incredible enabler in a really powerful deck insofar as Spright was a top-tier strategy. But I think it's also important to conceptualize it as a floodgate, because someday that's what it's going to be known as. Just wait till we get a generic fairy archetype that can easily summon these without extra bricks. I'm looking at you, Sanctuary in the Sky. Banisher of the Light and Banisher of the Radiance, of course, are macros, which is irritating as all hell. But I do want to draw special attention to Angel 07, a card that is currently only not being played because there's other guys that win Tribute Summon to win you the game. When this card is Tribute Summoned, it gains the following effect. Effects of effect monsters can't be activated. What? This is 100 points in Genesis, by the way. They know this could be a problem. This is on their radar. It just hasn't been banned in the TCG. Oh, I love this one. Evze, really fantastic answer. Says, this card is so close currently because Fairy Tail can use it, but it conflicts with Snow Wiccat. It's seeing fringe use with Dark Magical Curtain Overframe, but someday it'll have its place, like in a deck like Azamina Rolad. Gravekeeper Shaman is a card that I'm not super familiar with, but check it out. Negate all monster effects that activate in the graveyard except Gravekeeper's monsters. We banned Abyss Dweller. Oh, it also prevents your field spell cards from being destroyed by your opponent's card effect as long as you've got a Necro Valley on the field. I don't think that's gonna happen, but who knows. Ooh, I like this one a lot. All the Tyrant traps. They all tribute a set amount of monsters to lock something out of the game. Throws requires you to tribute 2 normal monsters, and it prevents people from normal or special summoning effect monsters. Tantrum is 2 monsters, which prevents your opponent from activating a spell card unless they also send a spell card from the deck to the graveyard. Not that big of a deal. Tirade prevents the effects of effect monsters that activate in the hand or the field from activating, and Tummy Ache prevents people from special summoning level 6 or higher monsters, but you have to have a low hand size for this to work. I will say that the most powerful of these is Tyrant's Throws, which was playable historically in an Ignite Pendulum deck that was somewhat good near the advent of Pendulum. It wouldn't take much for this to come back. Love this one. Froggo has a good one here. You're just going to have to hear me out on this one. Generic level 6 Synchro needs 3 materials that on paper is better Abyss Dweller at the cost of having a Flower Cardian in graveyard. I love Boardfly. I do recall people trying to win games with this card in formats that were specifically graveyard-centric, but they would be playing Flower Cardian. So this card says you can banish a Flower Cardian monster from your graveyard, and then until the end of your opponent's next turn, they can't activate the effects of cards in the graveyard or special summon monsters from the graveyard. Give them a fucking Abyss Dweller. There is a cute way to do this. Moonflower Viewing is also a generic Flower Cardian Synchro that has an effect that makes it a 2 for the purposes of performing a Synchro summon. So if you can summon that card, then Boardfly, you can banish the Moonflower Viewing to make this online. But you'd need a ton of material to make that happen. Actually, not that shocking. This is a great answer. Zombie World has already seen some success. It was really playable by sending a copy of Necroquip Banshee off of Beatrice during one of the tier limit formats to lock your Flu player out of the game. But Clockwork Knight, if you've ever played a sealed series, you know, takes over the game immediately. Not only does it give you this huge advantage in combat, a lot of decks actually care about the machine lock. Lag Spike's got a really interesting one that I hadn't even thought of. You ever heard of Nekroz of Sophia? I'll just read this card to you and you tell me if you can figure out what the problem here is. During either player's main phase 1, you can discard this card and a Nekroz spell card. Your opponent can't special summon monsters from the extra deck during this phase. What? Now, obviously, there are some limitations on this. It's main phase 1 only, so your opponent can easily go battle main phase 2, but its biggest utility, of course, is during their first turn when main phase 1 is the only time they'd be special summoning anyway. The thing that prevents it from being playable, of course, is that you have to hard open this and a Nekroz spell, but in a world where we get future Nekroz support that makes the Nekroz spells actually good, I wouldn't be surprised to see this card played. I do want to draw attention to this one, though. This is the, can you put up the English version of this? The Doriado retrain. This isn't the floodgate. It's the enabler for like a half dozen of these floodgates. Like a whole bunch of cards are going to have to be banned because of the existence of this one. Maybe that's the purpose of this card, the stress test for the video we're currently making. Real has a good one. These are all Duel Links cards, but Ghost Fairy Elphobia was experimented with in Fluonderies, was successful in Duel Links. This card says you can reveal a wind monster in your hand, and then until the end of your opponent's next main phase 1, monsters with a level higher than the revealed one can't activate their effects. Disturbance Strategy and Mind Wipe, of course, can be chained alongside Droll to an effect that activates in order to get a card to your hand, in order to put your opponent in a position where they just can't draw any cards. Totally agree with Wattfox. There was something funny you could do with this. In fact, throw up my old 10-minute testing about Wattfox Artifact Durandal. If this card is destroyed by your opponent's card, your opponent can't special a monster or activate spells or traps or spell trap effects or monster effects for the rest of the turn. What I did in that TMT was equip it to some stupid card with Union and Carrier, and then use Artifact Durandal to cause a replacement effect to trigger to pop this card. But there's a lot of replacement effects these days. Love this one. If Duel Links has taught me anything, it's that this is one field spell searcher away from being the next big floodgates. Summon Breaker. During main phase 1, if the turn player successfully conducts their third summon of a monster this turn, it becomes the end phase. There's a lot of ways that you can cheat this out in response to your opponent using an effect that would summon a monster. I think this card is so frustrating to play against and very accessible. Turns out being a field spell is a great place to be if you want to be a floodgate. Just ask Necro Valley and Zombie World in Duel Links. Love this one from Mr. Bycross, Anti-Human Intelligence Me-Psy-Ya. The only important part of this card is its pendulum, which says any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead except monster cards. Now at present, that's way worse than Die-Fi because Die-Fi turns off a lot of hand traps that have to go to the graveyard to resolve their effects, but it's not hard to imagine a future in which the necessary cards you need to keep out of the graveyard are not monsters, and for that reason, you just slap this down and automatically win the game. Love this answer because it is actually about to be the problem. So there's a new wave of Ghostrick support coming out in a future deck build pack, and for that reason, people may have forgotten that Ghostrick is responsible for some of the most irritating effects in the game, most notably Ghostrick Neko Musume. So this card says if you control a Ghostrick monster, if there is another Ghostrick monster on the field, get excited for the mirror. If a level 4 or higher monster is normal or special, it immediately changes to face down defense position. Like this just automatically Book of Eclipses the entire board every summon. Like, are they gonna have to design around this? This one's funny because it was a problem that it wasn't. Stellarknight and Stellar Diamond has been a weird floodgate that pops up in the list every time a graveyard deck is tiered. With new Satellar support and Branded being meta, you'd think it's Diamond's time to shine, but it's just not enough without protection and additional interruption. Absolutely true. The new Stellarknight support is very powerful, but doesn't put it at the same level as the other top tier strategies. However, if you play that strategy, you know a lot of the time your board will reduce down to a diamond and an opponent who doesn't have a way to out it. I love all the Abyss Dwellers, by the way. Why do we have a million Abyss Dwellers? Fuck, give them a skill drain. The new song is called Give them an Abyss Dweller. We got some good ones here today. I hope Konami takes this list as a potential smorgasbord they can fill up the ban list plate with at the buffet, rather than the viewers taking it as a list of cards they should be jamming in their next deck before they face me at locals. Ow! Baby, I'm running for you tonight. Hunt you down, make you alive.